everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Happy New Year. It's our first indie spotlight for 2025. And it's a very, very small week. I only read 2 books. I think Rocky read a couple as well. There's just not a lot out this week, which is fine. There's be weeks where we have too many books to talk about. But we definitely wanted to get this episode out because in addition to the couple books we're going to mention, also, I have to announce the winners for the Global Comics contest that we had going on. I gotta admit, I wish more people had participated. There was a few episodes where there's literally one comment. So, sort of by default, the person that commented, won the 30-day code for that day. But that being said, and I hope the person doesn't mind, there were other episodes that had multiple comments where not everybody could win. So, as opposed to giving like 4 codes to one person, I'd probably give 3 to one person, and the person that didn't win will get a code as well. So anyway, you should get a notification on YouTube if you won, because I'm going to reply to everybody's comments on the thread saying, hey, you won, send me an email and I'll get you your code. But I'll read them off really quickly, the people that won codes. Let's see, we have Joel Deal 2242 won a monthly code. Crexel AA, I'm saying that right, CREXLAA, you won a code. Brian Ackerman 5215. Brian, thank you so much for your support. You commented on nearly every video, so you're going to have multiple codes coming your way. Mark McKeever, who's won a code previously, wins another code, as does Joshua ING OBO 1559, who always comments on our indie spotlight. He won another code. He's won previously. Cosmic Cam 47 won a code, and Peter Parker 98616. So he was one that commented on 2 videos, but when I did the random draws, he didn't win either time. But there were like 4 videos that Brian was the only one that commented on. So you're still going to get a code, Peter. I'll send you a 30-day code for Peter Parker. And then the big winner of the 1-year code for our Christmas episode was Alex8873. So congratulations to everybody who won. Send me a message on social media or email the comicsourceblog@gmail.com, and I'll get you your code so you can check out the Global Comics digital platform, which is, I think, the best UI and best place to read digital comics going forward. So all that being said, we're going to jump into some of the books that we read. Like I said, a pretty small week. The first book that I want to talk about is Spawn number 360. Hope you guys all had a chance to catch my interview I did with the Todd father himself, Todd McFarlane. He is returning to full-time writing duties on Spawn with this issue number 360. So we can see inside this front cover, he's handling the script and the plot. Brett Booth is on the pencils, Adelso Corona on inks, Robert Nugent on colors, and Tom Orzechowski, longtime Todd McFarlane Productions letter and designer, handles the letters. So one of the things I was sure to do when I had Todd on the show was to ask him, hey, what do you think people need to know in order to pick up 360 as kind of a jumping on point to know what's going on with Spawn with your run. Now, I'm not caught up with Spawn. I'm a couple hundred issues behind. I just finished reading issue 100 not too long ago. But hopefully Spawn Daily's coming back this year, and I'll get caught up this year. But that being said, I did read this. I was curious. I'm like, let me read this. I heard what Todd had to say when I was like, well, what do you need to know? And obviously I listened to his answer because I was interviewing him. And I got to say, you're able to read this if you haven't been following along and kind of get an idea of what's going on. And I think you can continue reading it going forward. So basically, all the people who are Spawn and Spawn adjacent have had their powers taken away. All the people who get their powers from Hell have had their powers taken away. In 300, we had a new person sit on the Throne of Hell. The Throne of Hell's been empty since issue 100. Nyx, who's a character that's been around a long time in Spawn, has been on the throne for a while. Spawn, Al Simmons put her there. And I wouldn't go so far as to say she was a great person or really good person when she sat on the throne, but she wasn't as sort of evil as she appears to be now. But again, you know, Todd talked about that when he was on the show. It's like how the throne of hell can corrupt you. And so now she's pretty much bad news. And she has the ability to restore the powers of these people, but she has not chosen to do that yet. But it definitely seems like it's coming, and Ton hinted at that. Because in the power vacuum that's been created with all these different hellspawns not having their powers, and also agents of heaven not having their powers on Earth, the vampires, who are ruled by this character named Blood, they have sort of filled in that power vacuum. And Spawn has been doing various things to try to broker a deal with them, to try to make sure the hellspawn survive or whatever. And in this issue, it all comes to a head. With Spawn trying to make a deal with Blood, and Blood going, you know, we've been kind of shit on for like the longest time, because we haven't been powerful enough to fight the forces of heaven or the forces of hell. And so why would we want to make a deal with you? And you see Spawn trying to fight against this, you know, very powerful king of the vampires, Blood, with, you know, conventional weapons, because he doesn't have his hellspawn powers. And you can pretty much see that Blood just kicks his ass. I mean, look, this is our time, he says, and he stabs Al Simmons. Al Simmons is dead. Dead. Not for the first time, but will this be for the last time? Not really sure. Then we have this other person show up. I'm not exactly sure who this is, but says, yeah, you fool, you goddamn fool, and lifts Spawn up. I warned you that this would happen. So is this image here of, you know, is this an agent of Nick saying, you know, we need Spawn to run interference against the vampires, what have you? Is this Spawn getting his powers restored? We'll have to wait and see. But it's exciting. The art by Brett Booth is really fantastic. Longtime readers of Spawn will remember that countdown, you know, limited amount of power. When it runs down to 0, he actually, you know, doesn't have any power. He'll be dead. So I think it is a good jumping on point. The art is fantastic. The color work is great. And yeah, it's one of the things. I mean, Spawn's been running for 360 issues, and I thought Todd did a fantastic job when he was on the show, recapping different eras of Spawn and telling you what you need to know to read this. But yeah, this is classic stuff. Spawn.
Is that supposed to suggest that Spawn is dead because the clock was 0?
Yeah, he's dead. Like, in fact, dead? It says. Because he doesn't have any powers, he doesn't even have those powers. His powers have been taken away, and they've been like since issue like 310 or 315, I think he's had no powers. Nobody, no hellspawns, nobody who's gotten their power from hell has had any powers. But what McFarlane was saying when he was on the show was that for some reason Nyx needs those hellspawn on Earth to have powers, to run interference so that she can accomplish her plans. So as much as she doesn't want them to have the abilities, the powers, that she may have no choice but to have restored them so that she can continue work. She doesn't want to get the attention of the powers that are lining against her. And she's worried with, you know, with Al Simmons being killed, he's no longer there to sort of distract people, and distract the forces that are lining against her. So she has no choice but to restore his powers. Because it says here, when this woman shows up, it's been hours since his last heartbeat. So Al Simmons has been dead for hours. And she pulls the axe out and then lifts him up. So what I'm thinking, actually, is that technically if his powers were taken away, he didn't have any countdown at all. So the fact that the countdown shows up at all is maybe a hint that his powers are about to be restored. Like, the first thing to do is to restore his ability to have the power, right?
Right.
Now charge him up, and then you would see this, you know, counter maybe start counting up.
Sort of like a reboot or a resetting of a clock or something.
Exactly.
Or rebooting it.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the art's fantastic. Like I said, I think 300 was a great jumping on point. You can go back and read from 300. I think you can jump on here and figure out what's going on. Like I said, the Brett Booth art is really dynamic or whatever. But yeah, I think Spawn has had its ups and downs in terms of popularity. I mean, there are issues in the between like 150 and 200, maybe 225, that are highly sought after. Just a regular issue would be like $30 because the print run was so low. But Todd, you know, kept it up or whatever, and then, you know, as it approached 300, because it was breaking the record that Cerebus had previously held for longest running independent comic, and now obviously there's a bunch of other Spawn adjacent titles, what have you. But I love that inside every cover, like every issue of Spawn that comes out, breaks its own previous record of being the longest running independent comic. So it's fantastic, world record breaking.
Yeah.
So the fact that Todd's back on it, and again, like go listen to that interview. That'll give you the best indication of whether you want to jump on to Spawn, because Todd, he talks about a lot of the ideas that are coming. He talks about what Spawn means to him. This was a fantastic chat and tells you everything you need to know. You think you want to jump on. So, again, it wasn't a big week. I wanted to have stuff to talk about, and I was curious to see, hey, can you pick this up and kind of hit the ground running? And I think you can. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. All right. Let's move on. Next book that we're going to chat about is from Rocky, from Boom Studios. It's called When I Lay My Vengeance Upon Thee. And I did not read this, don't know anything about it, so I will say that the creative team, it's written by Gus Moreno, illustrated by Jacob Rebelka, and lettered by Becca Carey. So tell us what it's all about, Rocky.
Well, it's about exorcisms. It's about possession and Satanism, and in that respect, it might be, well, you might say, well, it's a little tropey, a little bit cliche, but I gotta say, I enjoyed it, and the art is stylistic. So Jacob Rebelka's art is stylistic, and it takes something that might take a little getting used to. But there's detail in the panels, and it starts off. We meet a Father Barrera, and he's doing a baptism, and then we discover that he is actually a disgraced priest, and it's revealed, or it's implied in the pictures. And this is a credit to Rebelka's art, is that when you go back and look at the art, you have to infer certain things, because you're not spoon fed. Writer Gus Moreno relies upon Rebelka's art to tell some of the story, and it appears as if a child that he baptized, that this Father Barrera baptized, drowned or died, and so he's a disgraced priest, and so despite the fact that and he confessed to the death of this child, but for whatever reason he wasn't like criminally prosecuted for it, or it's not really said. It's just sort of hinted at in pictures, but the Vatican basically wants him to, even though he's a disgraced priest, they want him to be the apprentice to another father by the name of Father Stygian, who is an expert at exorcisms. And what makes Father Stygian is a black priest. He's older, he's got gray hair, he's very experienced, and we first meet him where he's talking to another priest, and it's revealed that he's trying to help this other priest. This other priest is telling him about an exorcism that he thought went well, and this other priest is downplaying it, saying, well, it wasn't really an exorcism, the person was it wasn't an actual possession, it was just another one of those misdirections, we were fooled again, and the girl that was allegedly possessed is okay, but Father Stygian sees through the act, and he sees that this priest is in fact possessed himself, and he attacks the priest, and he manages to save this priest from this Father Bartel, who is actually possessed. And that's how you get to know, that's how we're introduced to Father Stygian. So we know he's kind of a badass. He's very intelligent. He's got very good intuition, very good instincts, and then we have a Cardinal Clanton enters the scene, and he wants Father Stygian he was not trained by the Vatican. His history is like shrouded in a little bit of mystery, but he's aware of certain secrets about how to do an exorcism that they don't even teach at the Vatican. But he's an old man, and the Vatican's the Cardinal says to him, look, man, you're getting old. You need an apprentice, because if you die, all the knowledge you have dies with you, because you didn't write this crap down for us at the Vatican to teach a new generation to deal with possessed people. So so they give him this Father Barrera and Father Stygian sort of they already Father Barrera. He feels he's shamed. He feels he's failed his church. He feels he's played a role in the death of a child. And unfortunately, the only way to escape being an apprentice is to literally commit suicide, which is what Father Stygian's previous apprentice did, committed suicide just to escape from it all. So it's kind of a big deal. Meanwhile, we have there's other subplots. Father Stygian is visiting this young girl in the hospital by the name of Andrea. And this young girl isn't so young. He's been visiting her for about 50 years, but she's in a coma, but she doesn't age. She's been in a coma for 50 years and she doesn't seem to have aged, but she hasn't woken up from the coma. So it's hinted at something pretty big in Stygian's past. And is that linked to maybe some of his secret knowledge of how to deal with the possessed, how to deal with exorcisms, et cetera, et cetera. But right away in this opening issue, you're introduced to the two priests that are going to play a central role. They both have secrets. They both have secrets in their past. One's dealing with a great deal of angst and a crisis of faith, a crisis of conscience, and the other one is dealing with the end of his legacy and passing on what he knows to someone new, but probably not feeling particularly that anybody can replace him. So you get a combination of a multitude of different sort of interacting character beats, and it works. And the art sort of grows on you as well. And there's even in the lettering, some of the language in the beginning, it's not all in English. It's in, I'm not even sure, to be honest, if that's in Latin, but it sort of heightens the feel that this is a priest, that this is an exorcism sort of / horror comic, because it heightens the tone and it heightens the feel, and even I think is it Becca Carey on the colors?
Letters. Becca Carey on the letters.
Letters?
Yeah, the colors. Jacob Rebelka must be doing the colors himself.
Yeah, must be doing the colors himself. Yeah, because there's not a lot of colors. It's very subdued. It has a darker tone to it, a darker feel, but it works. It works. I'm a suck. I love the exorcism movies. I like the original Exorcist and all the bad sequels that followed. I watched them too. So I enjoyed this, and I'd recommend it. And plus, it's got a pretty cool name. When I lay my vengeance upon thee, and I'm not sure what the title refers to. Is the title referring to the vengeance of one of the characters, or the demons, or the possessed? I'm not sure, but I'm in for I'm going to be checking this out. Boom Studios always comes out with some pretty interesting stories and comics, and this is no exception. So I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, it looks pretty interesting. The art kind of turned me off, so I didn't read it. But now hearing you talk about it and kind of flipping through, it's like, it looks like it might be interesting. I mean, why did he murder that baby? That's so. Crazy. I don't see any I see some Spanish and I see some French, but the other thing is
Spanish at the beginning. I don't.
But the other thing is, like, man, this is just steeped in Catholicism. So I wonder what Gus Moreno's background is. Like, probably raised Catholic, is my guess. It's always curious to me if people that are raised Catholic, are they still Catholic? Get older, it seems like many people move away from.
Well, I was born and raised Roman Catholic, and I sort of got out of it, as is common with a lot of former Catholics like myself.
Yeah.
I say I'm no longer Catholic, but I'm spiritual, whatever that means.
Yeah. No, I'm right there. Yeah, I'm right there with you. But it's so interesting. Just the dogma of the Catholic Church has been around forever. So interesting. So anyway, last book we're going to talk about. We've covered every issue of it so far. Knights versus Samurai. Written by David Dalsmalchian. Art is by Fede Mele. Ulysses Areola on colors. Annual Design handles the letters. This is just a fun story. It's this story of these crusaders, these English knights who travel to the east to apparently get revenge and fight against these barbarians. But it's all a ruse. One of this supposed loyal subject of the king is really manipulating the situation because he wants to go get something called shank, which gardens drag or guard rather here in their caves in the east. So there's the titular samurais and knights fight against each other while this guy's in the background stealing this shank from the cave, and what shank is and why he wants it. We don't really know. Meanwhile, there's a language barrier between the knights and the samurai. So they're fighting, a common enemy in the dragons, and you would think if they were able to to understand each other, they might be on the same side, despite the manipulations of this other character that says, he's telling the knights, hey, these samurai are evil, that they need to be vanquished and what have you. So there's some the sort of betrayal you would expect in King's Court, if you will, and there's these interesting, somewhat noble samurai, but they have their own, superstitions and their own beliefs and magic and what have you. But it's interesting. You can see here this guy fleeing the cave with the shank, saying, "Hurry!" Having two. It's better to send home 5 casts of shank than 2 caskets of us, because obviously they left a bunch of it still in the cave because. Surprisingly enough, the samurai and the knights were able to drive off the dragon that was attacking them. So this guy Baji is kind of the despicable double crosser of the piece, and clearly motivated by greed to collect this shank, whatever that is. So it's going to be interesting with the knights and samurai reluctantly fighting side by side with each other and driving the dragon off in this issue. Will they start to trust each other a little more? We'll have to wait and see. So it has this epic feel. The art's really fantastic, very moody and textured. And I think David Dastmalchian is doing a good job on the writing. So did you get a chance to read this one, Rocky?
I did, yeah. No, I quite liked. I liked it, and David Dastmalchian, he's writing. He's also writing Creature Commandos for over at DC, and I'm enjoying his run on that. It's his series anyway, and I liked. I can see sort of similarities in his writing. He's really good at scripting action and violence, and. My favorite scene is where the knights, the samurai are clearly taking the bull by the horn, so to speak, and they're battling this dragon. But the knights, they have a dragon's tooth, and they theorize. Well, and the leader of the knights theorizes that probably the tooth going to injure the dragon, and so that's ultimately. It's a really good scene that again is heightened by the lettering, which is in different languages, and they're trying to communicate with each other, and they manage to communicate effective enough that one of the people of the samurai sees that it's a dragon's tooth, and they shoot it. They attach it to an arrow and they shoot it into the dragon. But anyways, it's a very good scene. It's filled with tension. You can see you can see the frustration of the knights trying to communicate. Give us our weapons so we can fire this tooth, and they're trying to communicate, and they're frustrated, and I find that the lettering heightens the frustration of me as the reader, because it actually heightened the language barrier, and it's very, very effective. And and again, I've said this in the last 2 issues. It's something that you don't see often, but in comic books, this sort of very stark portrayal of a language barrier in quite the way that the lettering portrays in this comic, and it's very well done. And the art, I quite like the art as well. Very, very well done.
Yeah, no, I don't. With only 3 books, it's probably not really fair to do like book of the week or what have you. So we're going to leave that. But I did want to mention some of the other titles that are out this week that you might want to be on the lookout for, because there are a few other books. Saga, I don't read Saga, I never have. It's one of those things where it's so popular and so many people just rave about it that it kind of makes me not want to read it. It becomes almost a cliche at that point. But anyway, it's up to issue 71. That issue is out this week. Also, The Walking Dead Deluxe, which is basically the same Walking Dead series that came out previously from Skybound, but now it's colored. It's up to issue 104. Savage Dragon from Image, Eric Larson's book, is up to number 274. Vampirella, which comes out through Dynamite now. I don't know how they count their numbers or what have you, but 673. Now, I'm not disputing the fact that there's probably 673 issues of Vampirella out, but I just find it interesting that that's how they number it, because it doesn't seem like too long ago that they had their number 1 issue. And then they had their 666th issue. Obviously, they're going to lean into that trope, and now it's 673. So,
well, it came out in 1969. I think they're probably counting the magazines too. That would be my guess.
Yeah, it's just Who knows? I mean, is there anybody out there who's a big enough Vampirella fan to have read all of them? I
No.
also want to mention that Something is Killing the Children has a black and white scrapbook. I know that's a very popular property, so that's coming out from Boom this week. Uh, and then the last thing that I'm going to mention is from Massive Publishing, Ram God number 6, which I had those creators on to talk about number 1. I've actually had a hard time tracking that down. I didn't pre-order it. I tell everybody all the time, pre-order, 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 and then I didn't pre-order it myself, and my LCS doesn't get the single issue, so I need to track that down. But you can go to the Massive Publishing website and order them directly from there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But that's out this week as well. So if you're curious about the DC books this week, don't forget you can head over to Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom ! Comic Space Boom ! Over on YouTube. Ring the notification bell, leave some comments, let us know what you thought of the DC books this week. Be sure to like and subscribe, that way you don't miss any of those DC spotlights that come out every week on Rocky's channel. If you're curious and prefer to listen to audio-only versions, that's on the Comic Source podcast feed. You can just go to wherever you get your podcasts, whatever platform or app you prefer. Do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe there. If you're checking this episode out on YouTube, appreciate you subscribing to the Comic Source YouTube channel as well. Again, like, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you know when new content comes out. Reminder, all the winners of the Global Comics Code, don't forget to shoot me a message so I can get your code to you. And we want to thank Global Comics for providing those codes. Highest possible recommendation to go check it out. It's fantastic. It's free to try. There are comics on there that are free that you don't need a subscription for. There's a lot of the books on there that you can read, the first 20 pages or first 10 pages, depending on how many pages. Usually it's like the first 10% of the book. So if it's a 200-page graphic novel, you're going to get 20 pages free. If it's just a regular issue of a comic, you may only get 2 pages free. But it gives you a chance to see what the user interface looks like and, check something out before you decide, hey, I want to go ahead and subscribe and read it. You can't buy individual issues, but you can just subscribe, and it's very inexpensive, and you get access to everything. I think they're up over 70,000 comics on there now, and they're constantly adding new things. So definitely worth your time to go and check it out, especially when you sign up. You go through this enrollment process. They ask you what you tend to like in terms of, hey, what do you like in TV? What do you like in film? What do you like in previous comics you've read? That way it knows what to recommend for you. It's a fantastic platform. So go and check it out. And I think that's going to do it. We appreciate you joining as always. Any last thoughts, Rocky?
No, it's just, great week. Happy New Year to everyone. And, let's enjoy indie comics going into the new year.
Yep, 100%. So, all right, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.